The following is the agenda for the regular Borough Council meeting of the Borough of Pompton Lake, Mayor and Council and Municipal Corporation in the County of Passaic. The meeting will begin at 7:30 p.m. on February 28, 2024, in the Municipal Building, 25 Lennox Avenue, Pompton Lake. Consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, the meeting will be open for public comments and shall be in accordance with the terms and conditions of the borough's municipal code and bylaws.
Please stand for flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bless this mayor and council as deliberate for the best of Pompton Lakes. In conformance with the Open Public Meeting Law, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this regular meeting through notice posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, mailed to all, have requested and paid for same, and published in the Suburban Trends. Roll call, please.
Thank you, sir.
Here.
Council President Dewan,
Here.
Councilman Cruz,
Here.
Councilwoman Kent,
Here.
Councilwoman Hilda,
Here.
Councilwoman Palmdor,
Here.
Councilman Lennon.
Here.
With us this evening is our Borough Attorney David Rutenberg and our Borough Administrator Michael Corrales.
Okay, thank you. We all just attended a nice ceremony to honor all our firemen that were at the house explosion and our first aid squad. Well-deserved honors, well-deserved awards. I'm sure everybody will talk about it more, but at the end of the day, as I said at the site, you know, these are volunteers in town. They put their time and energy in to help the residents of Pompton Lakes, and we have to really appreciate what they do on a daily basis from time to time. Sometimes it's a minor thing, and other times it's a house explosion where they could lose their lives. So they never know what they're getting into when they show up. Okay, can I have a motion to open the meeting for public comments?
Second.
Councilwoman Polidori, Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone in the public like to address? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close the public session?
So moved.
Council President
Second.
Devine, Councilman Venon, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion to approve the following minutes. Regular meeting minutes, February 14th. Closed session meeting minutes, February 14th, 2024.
So moved.
Council President
Second.
Devine, Councilwoman Kilberg. Somebody was not here, I think, last meeting. Was it you, Bobby?
It was me.
So you're
Yeah, abstain.
abstaining, okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion to approve the following bill list, as stated below. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilwoman Paldori, and who was the second? Councilman Venon, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Before we start, Resolution 24-135 is being pulled, it won't be on the agenda. Does anybody need any agendas pulled? No. Okay, Liz.
Whereas the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Pompton Lake circulated consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions, whereas the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Pompton Lake does desire to remove resolution from individual action from that agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. Resolution 24-129 through 24-143, and Resolution 24-135 is pulled.
Motion to approve the resolutions.
Motion.
Councilwoman Polidori,
Second.
Council President Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, ordinances.
Okay, ordinances will be presented for second reading and final adoption on March 13th. Ordinance 2410, bond ordinance providing the improvements of various roads in and by the Borough of Pompton Lakes in the County of Passaic, the State of New Jersey appropriating $890,000 therefore, and authorizing issuance of $627,457 bonds or notes of the borough for financing such appropriation.
Motion to approve ordinance 2410 for introduction.
So moved.
Councilman Cruz,
Second.
Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
You have roll call down here. Do we need a roll call on that? Roll call, please.
Yes, roll call.
Yep.
Councilwoman Cruz. I'm sorry.
Okay. We may need to talk later.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hilder.
She mixes things up
Yes.
once. I do it all the time.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Lennon.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kent.
Yes.
Ordinance 24-11, an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Pompton and establishing a fee for sponsorship of community welcome signs.
Motion to approve ordinance 2411 for introduction.
Motion.
Councilman Bennett,
Second.
Council President Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Kilburn.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Bennett.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Karen.
Yes.
Ordinance for second reading. This ordinance has been advertised and posted on the municipal bulletin board. Ordinance 24-09. Ordinance amending Chapter 7, Section 7-33, mid-block crosswalk of the Borough Code to establish crosswalks.
Okay, before we get to the opening of public, Mike, you wanted to say anything about it, or?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess just a quick comment. At the request of our Traffic Bureau and the Police Department, there was a request made to codify all the mid-block crosswalks in the borough. Those include 4 crosswalks, and as a result of this ordinance, and to follow up on this, we will be implementing the proper traffic signage at all 4 crosswalks. So that's coming, by the summer.
Okay, thank you. Motion to open the meeting for public comments on ordinance 24-09.
So moved.
Councilman Devine,
Second.
Councilwoman Polidori, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone like to talk just about this ordinance? Seeing no one, motion to close the meeting for public comments on ordinance 24-09.
Motion.
Councilman Bennett,
Second.
Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion to approve ordinance 2409 for final adoption.
So moved.
Councilman Devine,
Second.
Councilwoman Kilberg, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Kilburn.
Yes.
Councilwoman Polidori.
Yes.
Councilman Bennett.
Yes.
Councilman Cruz.
Yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, reading more here.
Councilman Dewan.
Yes.
Councilwoman Karen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Like I mentioned before, we had a fire ceremony honoring all our volunteer departments for the fire. You know, I think everybody up here at one point went to the fire scene. If you had gone to that scene, you would have been amazed on how no one lost their lives there. The roof was blown across the street. The explosion happened from the inside out while our firemen were going into the building. Some of them got blown out of the building. So we are so lucky that nothing serious happened out of that. And it just tells you what happens when you're involved in one of these organizations. You just don't know what you're getting into. And our ambulance squad was right there to take care of the injured. We did have injured firemen. Luckily, it wasn't serious, but we did. So I thank them all. I appreciate the time and energy they put into our borough. Speaking of that, I attended a ceremony where Congressman Pascrell came to the firehouse, and he had appropriated $238,000 for our fire department for safety equipment. They bought Scott packs with it. I was impressed to see when they were explaining how these packs work. Each pack is $10,000, and there's communication within the mask to the next person, and they can speak to each other. They're vital parts of the fire department. So we are very honored to have Congressman Pascrell come here and personally give us the check and to fight for us to get the check. While he was here, I did speak to him. Each congressperson in Washington has some money that they can use for what we call pet projects, and one of his pet projects in New Jersey, in his region of New Jersey, is our public library. And we're hoping to get $500,000 from him to redo our library. He said the money's held up right now in Washington, but it's appropriated through his office to be given to us. And as soon as it's let go from Washington itself, we'll be getting $500,000 to redo our library. That would be windowing and roofs and siding and all the things that we have some issues with. He recognized it as a historic building in our town. We recognize it as a historic building, and everybody recognizes Pompton Lakes by the library. So that's a great grant that we can do. And I think Michael might even have it in the report. We're even putting money ourselves into the project before we even get it, because there's some work that has to be done at the library. Had a meeting about the Civic Center. That's moving along. We should have an answer on how and when they're going to start rebuilding our Civic Center. I'd like to get that open as soon as possible. Not having that open does hurt us. For anybody who remembers, we used to have a meeting there every night. So not having that building available to us is making it tough. So hopefully that'll open up soon. I met with a couple of council people here and our administrator and the engineer to go over plans for the Joe Grill project, which we're waiting to get new numbers on. And then we walked over to the Greenway, Morris County Greenway. And, there was some damage done to that Greenway during the flooding event. And our engineer does suggest that we're going to have to reinforce the wall to hold back the ground from coming down. So we're looking on how we're going to do that. I am going to reach out to the county because the county helped us, was their initial person who paid for that project and then handed it off to us. I'd like to see if they'd be willing to jump in and take care of it. If we don't fix what we're losing, we're going to lose the walkway because a lot of the walkway has started to fall into the river already from all the rain we had. So I'll keep you posted on that. Had a couple meetings with finance, went to the zoning board meeting last night, rec meeting, numerous meetings with the administrator, and that is my report. Council President Dewan.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I did want to, as Al Evangelistus walks into the room, I did want to recognize the firefighter ceremony tonight. It was a great ceremony, certainly deserving of the recognition. From an outsider perspective, it's easy to look through the litany of everyone that was given citations, the unit citations, the notorious citations, and obviously the valor citations. Like, well, everybody gets a certificate, but realistically, that's what it takes. It's a real team effort. It's our first aid squad. It's our firefighters. It's multiple trucks from our firefighters responding to that event. So everybody that went up there really deserved it, from people taking the calls and things like that. So again, Al, thank you for organizing that, having it happen, because those people really needed to be recognized for that night. A couple weeks ago, I attended the redevelopment meeting. There were 2 concepts shown. There were no actual active applications. One was an updated concept for 198-222 Wanacue Avenue. That includes Vaskin's building and a number of others that's under that ownership. From what had been previously shown back in August, the project has been, I think, scaled back quite a bit. At the time of August, most importantly, there were about 380 units. This has been scaled back to about 210 units, so it's a little bit more in line with what is being built at Capital Degli Meridia. It drops the height, it reorients a little bit of the building. So again, this is not a formal application at this point. The redevelopment agency is not acting upon what came to us. A lot of the devil is still in the details. If and when this becomes an application for the redevelopment agency, I still think there's a long way to go to even get to approval, because I know there's a lot of concerns like, well, we're just getting this building built, let's see what happens with this. It's going to be a long time before this even gets through the approval process, and I'm not even going through everything else that has to be changed prior to them getting approval, getting into the building permits, all of that stuff. So again, long way to go. It is improvement on what he had previously showed. I think he had listened to the public and the redevelopment agency that night. Maybe it's not what everybody wants exactly, but again, it's my opinion that it's a much improved project at this point. We also saw a concept for the veterans housing at the county garage location. It's sort of a Passaic County project, but it's Passaic County Housing Authority. So they're fundamentally a private organization. Interestingly enough, it's kind of like our Pompton Lake Senior Housing. Like, it's not a governmental entity. It's a corporation of the county. So they're looking at building. If you don't know about the project, they're looking at building about 52 units. Dedicated towards veterans and seniors. Pompton Lakes residents get first priority, veterans obviously get first priority, and then up-county residents get first priority. It's 52 units. We have an extensive waiting list on our senior housing. I don't doubt that those factors are going to get this project filled up very quickly. Again, it is a concept plan. They will end up seeking a pilot from the borough. So in that regard, it actually takes what is a non-tax-paying property into having some kind of revenue stream associated with the project itself, because obviously the county, being a governmental entity, does not pay taxes. This, again, is supported by the county, but it's not quite the county either. So again, that was a concept plan, not a formal application. I think they're a lot closer to doing a formal application than the previous project I referenced. So we'll be seeing that in front of the redevelopment agency in pretty shortly. Last Wednesday, I attended the Municipal Utilities Authority meeting. It was their reorganization meeting. The slate of officers and consultants were reappointed for 2024. As I mentioned last year and eventually dialed back, John Wegley, who had been the executive director for the for the MUA, is retiring at the end of April. Beginning May 1st begins his retirement. In the next couple of months, I would like to do a proclamation at this council meeting recognizing his long service as the executive director. Obviously, we can reach out to Mary to get a lot of finer details, but as long as I've been involved in Pompton Lakes, when we've dealt with the sports groups or fields or things like that, we've needed to reach out to the MUA, and John has always found a way to make it work and support the other groups as part of it too. I know, again, especially at Carlo Field, I know that was a bit of an issue. The MUA went through a number of projects being applied to through the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. It's like a bank, but it's funded through the state for specific infrastructure projects, mainly sewer and water, which is what our MUA obviously does. It is low interest loans. It has principal forgiveness attached to it. Basically, if let's say you do a $1 million project, you might get up to $250,000 back as part of funding it through this project. So it takes care of the principal debt. It drops the cost. Obviously, that's a benefit to our taxpayers and ratepayers through the MUA. But some of the projects that they are looking through the iBank include treatment for certain wells in Pompton Lakes, the Ringwood Avenue water main upgrade, and then Pompton Avenue, Hemlock Avenue water main upgrade, and then finally the replacement of the North Pump Station. And then lastly, related to redevelopment, the MUA is undergoing a wastewater treatment plant capacity analysis. What they want to see is, based on how we operate our wastewater system, how many more cubic gallons or whatever it is, however they measure wastewater, can we support a growth in that amount? And you obviously have a certain factor. If you have a one-bedroom unit, you might generate on average X number of gallons of wastewater. So they kind of want to know what's our capacity for development, redevelopment, new development. All of that obviously takes into account if you remove a building that is using wastewater, now you've increased the capacity a little bit, and then you're building something new, and that requires more. So they're trying to get a real hard number about where that is. Obviously, there's opportunities to upgrade that capacity, but that also requires additional costs. So, but again, the main point of this capacity analysis that they're wrapping up is to have a good understanding about how many more units they can support as part of redevelopment. And that concludes my report.
Okay, Liz, can you reach out to the MUA to see what date works available for him? Because I'd like to have him here if we're going to do a proclamation. Or you can, I don't know. Between you and Liz, let's try to get a date that we can work out, that the members would want to come to. So.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilwoman Polidori.
Thank you. I also would like to thank all of our first responders for the service to our community, as well as the rest of my council people and the mayor here on the dais. That was a really nice ceremony and well-deserved. I attended the coalition meeting virtually for the first time as the newly appointed parent representative, so that was a really nice meeting. There was a lot of people on the call. I learned a lot about what you are doing and what we have coming up. Bobby, you're the liaison, right?
Which committee?
For
MUA.
coalition?
Yes.
So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Walk for Hope or anything. You'll cover all that?
That's fine, yeah, I'll just
Okay.
go with it.
I also attended the bid meeting. One of the, I guess, the most discussed topic during that meeting was the issue with the garbage on Wanacue Ave. Our borough administrator was with us. He did bring to the attention of everyone there that he will be looking into some options and some potential solutions. Were you going to discuss that today?
Yeah, the intent was to bring it up during workshop at the March 13th meeting.
Okay, so then I'll hold off on that. More to come. And we're going to revisit Signs for Heroes as well. Michael, I know you
Yes,
said you
yeah.
had a, okay.
We'll revisit that at the next meeting as well.
Okay, perfect. I also attended the site visit at Willow Field to look at what, if anything, needs to or can be done, or if the project can be implemented as is. Waiting to hear back on the engineer for that. I was invited by one of the councilmen up in Franklin to join alongside of our OEM coordinator, Al Evangelista, a presentation that they had asked for us to give to them pertaining to implementing their own CERT team. The councilman that had reached out is from Pompton Lake, so he was familiar with some of the work that we did here and very impressed. And of course, Al, being as well versed and having the leadership role and the experience he does, was the perfect person to bring up. And it was nice because to see another town look at what we do and want to take that model and implement it in their own town, and to be able to present how successful what we do here is, it was good. So more to come on, hopefully we'll continue that dialogue and help them put that program in place as well. I also would like to thank the library board and Councilwoman Kilberg for getting approval for my being able to continue this year. I don't know if you remember last year, I started a financial literacy program for the month of April. April is Financial Literacy Month. So every Wednesday for the month of April from 4 to 5 p.m., I do a reading for 5th and 6th grade aged children, age-appropriate books with stories that tie into financial terms, basic financial concepts to kind of broaden their knowledge on basics of finance, which is something that, with my background, I personally feel is very important to have in our schools. So I look forward to that. That will start the first Wednesday in April. I attended the budget meeting, also hosted an international outreach for our Pompton Lakes Women's Club, which we do annually to celebrate the Chinese New Year. We had a nice dinner, everyone together. I attended the redevelopment meeting. And I also attended a movie premiere at the Pompton Craft House in Pompton Lakes. It was a movie or a documentary that was made not exclusively about, but largely centered around our own Flipside records. And growing up here, that was a store that in high school we were in all the time. So the gentleman that made the movie actually is only a few years older than me, and it was his first job. So he talked about his journey in the record industry and how much of an impact our store had on his life. So there was a lot of footage from the streetscape, from what Pompton Lakes looked back like in the 90s, and then all the way through to today. And they actually had a nice cameo and spotlight on the Station 1 record store. So it was really nice to see so many residents come out, support one of our local businesses, and watch a documentary featuring two of our other local businesses. It was really well attended. And to see some local business owners in the little movie was really nice. And one last question for our administrator. I saw the sign, we finished the sign resolution for the town entrance signs. Are we still working on the pricing and how we're going to implement the signs for the dog park?
It's coming up at the next council meeting. I'm working on the ordinance and the resolution for that.
Okay.
So moving forward on that.
Good. Well, thank you. All good news. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilman Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to congratulate our first responders that were recognized this evening, and thank all our first responders for taking care of our community. Last night, the Historic Commission met. We discussed the Spoken History Project, where I believe Al Evangelista will be our first victim, our first person we interview to record all the information that he knows that's up in his brain regarding the history of our borough. We also discussed the semi-quincentennial of the United States, which is coming up on July 4th, 2026. That's a 250-year anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Just kind of spitballing ideas on how we can celebrate here in Pompton Lakes, since George Washington did spend some time through this area. Planning board meeting, 735 Hamburg Turnpike. That's the building with the area that was cut into the mountain was discussed. And what happened was the county imposed additional stormwater retention requirements on the owner and the builder, and they had to shift some things around, and the communication didn't flow back to Pompton Lake, so there was, that was basically, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
that was basically the gist of what happened there. So they were looking to get approval for a retention wall?
Attention wall, yeah.
Retention wall, thank you, and so that they can continue working on the project, hopefully by spring. And that is my report.
And I'll just add to what you said about the planning board. So the concern was they dug out some of the mountain, and some of the condominium association that lives on top of the mountain was concerned about it, and there were numerous residents from the association there to ask questions. I think they were satisfied with some of the questions they heard and some of the work that's going to be done there. You know, just so the board understands, or the council understands, they were putting up that retaining wall without a permit. So they dug away a lot of the mountain without a permit, because the county told them to do something that they didn't come back to us with. So it was a little miscommunication, like Councilman Bennett said, but a major mess up, right? You know, when you're taking a mountain where you can't put it back, so that becomes the issue. So that's where and it's still ongoing, they needed some more information, but obviously, they can't leave it as it is, so that's the determination they have to make right now with the planning board. Councilman Cruz.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one item to report tonight. The Coalition of the Municipal Alliance will be having their annual Walk for Hope. This is going to be held on May 11th. There is no rain date. This is for all ages. Group sizes are welcome to this event. For those of you that know, this is an ongoing stigma-free campaign for mental health awareness. This will begin at the high school with ceremonies at 11. And remember, this is on May 11th. The walk will start on the front lawn of the high school and walk down to Ramapo on the sidewalk to Hirschfield Park, and loop around the walking path from the park and back to the high school where food activities and giveaways will commence. If you'll find right here on the table, there's going to be an information sheet that's right there with a QR code that you can scan and fill out the form as well online. They will be having registration at 10:30 as well in person, and we'll have follow-up reminders just for everyone as we get closer to that date. And that'll do it for my report, Mayor.
And just to remind, that's open to the public, open to anybody who wants to attend. We did have good numbers in the last couple, and a lot of high school kids, are the high school kids coming this year? So we had high school kids that came out, you know, maybe we had 100, 150 people do it the last couple of years. So it's an enjoyable event, you know, so if you feel like taking a walk, that's a good time to be doing it. Councilwoman Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. It was an honor to attend the fireman's ceremony today with the meritorious awards that were given out. And Ally did a wonderful job with that whole program, and I thank you very much. I thank the firemen for all they did in keeping us safe. I attended the Passaic County Hazardous Mitigation Meeting along with the OEM coordinator, with the police borough clerk, and regarding the Passaic County mitigation plan and the upcoming plan and how we're going to be involved with the borough. I also attended a Zoom meeting following up with that meeting with the New Jersey State OEM officials. Mayor Sarah and Borough Administrator Mike Corelli were on that call, and we discussed flooding issues, we discussed the dam, trying to obtain either some type of funding or grants for flood control mitigation measures for damages that had occurred in the past. So I want to thank you, Michael, for setting that Zoom up, and we're still, Mayor, we're still going to be talking to it's actually the state police on the OEM group on where we can get some more money. So they've gave us some ideas, but money's tight right now. But we're trying very hard, just so all residents know. We're not walking away from this. I also attended the budget meeting. We're looking at trying to get a budget that everybody can live with. I attended the fire department's ceremony with Congressman Bill Pasquale and Mayor Sarah, and that was a really nice event. They had a lot of pictures. The congressman gave a historic overview of what it's like to be in a fire department for like 40 years, 50 years, and that was very interesting because you kind of forget where you come from and where we're at today. So that was very interesting. And we got this SCBA equipment which can save lives. There's just no two ways about it. So it's a lot of money, and I'm very grateful to the congressman for that. I also attended the site visit with our borough engineer, Tom Borati, and his associate with Mayor Sarah and Councilwoman Polidori regarding the Willowfield improvement projects. We discussed a multitude of issues, including cost estimates and the proposed plan, and whether or not major modifications are possible and anything related to that. So that's an ongoing project. I met with Ryan Gossinger from the Prevention Coalition because we talked about crowd control, because we're hoping to have a big crowd. And I've been very involved with crowd control with the river cleanup, so we went over a couple items, and that was a very, really good discussion that we had that day. At the coalition office, I also met with the Pompton Lake High School Youth Adult Program, and they were wonderful, and they made jewelry, and they sell the jewelry, and they take the money, and then so I got, for $1, I got Pompton Lake High School earrings, which are like little beaded, so if you ever get a chance to buy some of their stuff, the money goes to a really good cause. And that was very sweet. I also attended the Chamber of Commerce dinner, and evidently the high school is thinking of doing a program with the Chamber of Commerce, which is connected to the bid, but there is a separate group. And they're going to try to get some of the students that are not really worried about going to college, but maybe starting a business or getting involved with the local business, mentor with current business owners, which is a wonderful opportunity for these kids to see how to run a business. So the principal of the high school was one of the guest speakers, and that was very interesting, and I'm hoping that takes off very soon. And at the same time, we also talked about the garbage cans in downtown area, and I'm, looking forward to resolving that, because when I was down there on Friday, I have to thank the DPW. They did a great job in cleaning up everything, but it's a chronic problem, and we've got to resolve it. And I see our bid folks out in the audience, and I'm going to work with you best I can to get that thing done. And that is my report.
Okay, thank you. You reminded me that I signed a letter today that our administrator put together to the DEP commissioner, and I think you guys saw the copies of that, basically asking to have a meeting, and was speaking with Michael. We were going to maybe try to invite some of the local mayors to it to discuss the whole flooding and the dam working and who's operating it, and all the questions that have come up since the last flooding. Hopefully they will respond. Hopefully the letter I thought was well written, and hopefully they can respond to that, and we can go somewhere with that. So, and years past, when Katie Cole was mayor, we used to have a once-a-year meeting with the mayors to discuss the flooding issues, and I talked to Michael about maybe bringing that back, so we can just sit with the other mayors and kind of feel them bounce things off of each other, see what they're doing, what we can help or not help. And I got a call from a resident from Pequannock who, saw something I did on television and said, I'd like to be involved with your flood advisory board here in Pompton Lakes. So he's going to come to the next flood advisory board meeting. So, we start getting all the towns and the communities to get involved in this. It'll make an easier fight. Just having one man talking doesn't make things the best. I also reminded me, I do want to thank the DPW. I did reach out after all the noise about the garbage, and Dan was able to send men down there and clean up that was a one-time fix, but we'll work on that, and we'll see where we can go with that. Councilwoman Kilburg, do you want to read your things first, or do you want to do whatever you want?
Well, I'm going to do the motions.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, a motion to approve a carnival license application by the Pompton Lakes Elks to be held at 15 Parent Ave, Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, on the following dates and times. Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. through 10 p.m. Friday, August 23rd, 2024, 6 p.m. through 10 p.m. Saturday, August 24th, 4 p.m. through 10 p.m. Sunday, August 25th, 4 p.m. through 10 p.m. No alcoholic beverages to be served at any carnival or on the premises of the licensee during the conduct of a carnival. No license granted under this article may be assigned or transferred by the licensee. Violation and penalties subject to fines. The application to be reviewed, inspected by police, fire prevention, first aid, construction official, health department.
All right, can I have a second? Who was the second? Councilwoman Polidori, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, next one.
Okay. Motion to approve Pompton Lakes Prevention Coalition Walk for Hope in conjunction with Stigma Free Campaign and Mental Health Awareness Month to be held on May 11th, 2024, rain or shine. Registration is at 10:30 a.m. at the Pompton Lakes High School. Walk to begin at 11 a.m. from Pompton Lakes High School to Ramapo Ave and ending at Hirschfield Park and returning to Pompton Lakes High School using the same reverse route. Walk route approved by police, county permits not required. Police, fire, and first aid squad notified.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Kent, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Okay. I have also attended this evening's award ceremony for the firemen and first aid squad. I would like to congratulate all that received awards, but most of all, I need to thank you for your fearless acts of heroism in the face of great danger. I also attended the redevelopment meeting. I attended the flood board meeting, and they are looking into possibly sending out the emergency preparedness booklet that's in the center of our calendar out separately. We discussed that. I attended the library board meeting, and the board did approve Pride Day on the library lawn for June. I attended the recreation meeting, and we did start the discussion about the increase in fees for summer camp. And the Easter egg hunt has been moved to March 23rd at 2 p.m. Hirschfield Park. Rain date is the 24th. And last but not least, Passaic County had a poster competition for fourth graders in all the schools in Passaic County, and Lennox School in Pompton Lakes won, and they are February on the 2024 county calendar.
That's good.
That's the end.
I don't know why we have to be a cold month, but okay, we'll have to talk to somebody. And just to remind me, there is still an opening on the library board, correct?
There are 2 openings
Two
on the
openings.
library board.
So we have 2 openings on the library board. If anybody's interested, especially a teacher that would be interested in helping out and setting curriculum for the library, they only meet once a month. They don't meet in the summer, and they meet for about 45 minutes on a Monday night, starting at 7 o'clock. Anyone who's interested, you can contact myself, Councilwoman Kilberg, or the clerk, and we'll get you the right information. Okay, Borough Attorneys.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things came up over the course of the month that we'll be talking about in workshop, so I will hold up until workshop to report on those. I will say, as a predicate to our Borough Administrator's report, Mr. Corelli will be reporting on there are 2 personnel matters that were to be held in closed session. One of the employees that was the subject of one of those has waived having it done in closed session. And so that's going to be reported on in his Borough Administrator's report. And I just want to remind the council that this is nothing that requires council action. This is only something that's being reported to the council. It is being handled by Labor Council and our Borough Administrator. If that employee is here, they'll have an opportunity to speak to the council during the public comment period, within the parameters of our public comment period. But again, it's nothing requiring council action. So this is just merely being reported on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Borough Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items before we get to that issue. I met with the folks at the Business Improvement District. We talked about some maintenance and streetscape issues that have arisen. So we're going to be looking at things like fixing crooked signs, crumbling pavers, putting in new flower baskets on our street poles, and kind of, sprucing up the street for the summer months. So looking forward to that.
Can I ask one question about that? I noticed and they must have just went up. Where do the signs come from? Do not park, you only park, parking meters are in use from Monday to Saturday. They don't look really great where they really are.
That was a subject of our meeting and
Okay.
is being looked
All right,
into.
we got to fix that a little bit. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. At tonight's council meeting, the governing body introduced a bond ordinance. I would just like to reiterate that this project is for the Dawes Highway Improvements Project, which is the full milling and paving of the full length of Dawes Highway. Normally, this would be included in our annual capital plan, but unfortunately, fortunately enough, part of this project is funded by DOT grants, and we are subject to a timeline in which we have to award the project by. So we really wanted to get started on this sooner than later so that we can adequately implement the project. So more to come on that throughout the year. You know, we are looking to facilitate this project by the fall. I'm in receipt of a request from the Board of Education, and I will go ahead and schedule a meeting, but it is my understanding that the board is potentially looking at relocating, no? Okay, I'll bring it up at the next meeting. It's about our fields. We're having a budget presentation meeting on March 13th from 6:30 to 7:30, so more to come on that, but we'll have a formal budget presentation that will be on all of the TVs and publicized to our residents in the public. So looking forward to that. And I believe, one more item, I was reached out to by the governor's office. The governor's office is putting together an application to FEMA on behalf of some of our residents for purposes of elevating homes in the floodway. So we're working with the governor's office to reach out to those residents, but the governor's office is targeting 4 homes that are eligible for the elevations. Those include 2 on River Edge Drive, 1 on Magnolia Ave, and 1 on Poplar Ave. So we're working with the governor's office to get them in touch with those residents. I think it would be beneficial to all. 2 of the homes are the only homes left on one of those roadways. So, you know, there's definitely, you know, there could be pros to doing so. So we're working with the governor's office on that. And I would just say that the program is voluntary on behalf of the resident, but there are incentives involved. So, you know, we're working closely with the governor's office on that. And then the last item I had, as a follow-up to the borough attorney, so we have had an incident involving DPW Supervisor Tim Duffy. He has waived his right and wanted us to discuss this in public. He has the right to do that as an employee. So I'm bringing forth what happened and, you know, how to move forward. So you're all in receipt of a civilian complaint from a resident at 413 Lincoln Ave. This happened on February 13th at 9:40 a.m. And essentially the incident was with regards to Mr. Duffy driving his plow vehicle down the roadway during heavy snowfall. This said resident was out at the curb snow plowing his driveway, his or her driveway. And the complaint has made accusations that the supervisor was driving too fast and he nearly clipped him on the sidewalk, and he was buried in snow, he so claims. So the administration has taken the complaint. We're working with our labor council on further action. I will tell you that disciplinary actions, if applicable, are in negotiations, and I should have a further update for the governing body at the next meeting. But again, I just wanted to make you all aware of the incident, and we do take it very seriously, and we will handle it internally. And with that, that's all I had. Thank you.
And the only reason we brought this up in public is because he had asked us to do it this way.
Yes, employees have the right to request, when they are in receipt of what's called a rice notice, they have the right for it to be discussed in public. He has wished to do so, so that's why it was in public.
And that, the email that I sent you, is that the one you're talking about with the homes?
Yes.
Okay. Did they identify, they didn't identify the homes to me. Did they identify the actual, and do they want us to contact them, or they're going to contact them?
They want us to provide the contact info to them, and they'll reach out.
They'll reach out.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for the administration?
I just have one. As far as the selection process that FEMA uses to identify the homes, how is that done?
Yeah, thank you, good question. They have to identify severe repetitive loss properties. I would defer to Councilwoman Kent on that technical term, but it's a certain criteria as to how much damage they occurred and, you know, over the course of the last few years. So there is a criteria there. It can't just be, you know, any home. It has to have all these standards in place.
Thank you.
And it's repetitive loss is the key to the whole thing.
Right.
So if they have repetitive loss over a certain percentage that they can prove, then they can go to, you know, to try to apply to it. Some people, have one loss, lose a lot, and think they can get bought out. That's not necessarily true. So it has to be repetitive.
I mean, I'm grateful that he's, was willing to step in his office, obviously, and reach out and coordinate this, obviously, but on the broader scheme of things, obviously, we know that there's bigger issues that we need to address with the governor, definitely. Hopefully, as we move forward, he'll be a better partner with Pompton Lakes to address some of the ongoing issues.
Yep. You had a question?
Yeah, I had one thing. Dawes Highway was identified as a priority corridor in our Complete Streets implementation plan, so I'd encourage our engineers to review that in conformance with our policy as well.
Thank you. You bring up an excellent point. I'm in contact with the Flood Advisory Board Chairwoman
Okay.
to talk about stormwater enhancements as well. So our engineer is looking into both in terms of the design
Good.
process.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. All right, so we're going to move into our first ever workshop. And the way for the public, this is just a discussion among the council to just talk about some projects that are upcoming. No action is taken, it's just a discussion. Really, it's not a public interaction at that point. If you had a concern or question, you could bring it up in open session, but there is no public discussion, it's just with the council. And I'm going to let Michael start with the first one, which is the model tree removal and replacement ordinance that we're looking at.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm in receipt of a notification from the Department of Environmental Protection. At the borough is a 2023 Tier A MS4 permittee under the stormwater management regulations with the state. And the state has put out this new tree removal and replacement model ordinance. It's something that us as the permittee have to comply with. And at a minimum, adopt a community-wide tree replacement ordinance. So I'm in receipt of the model. It's a fairly standard model, and I guess I'll just preface it by saying all of the municipalities have to abide by this new regulation. It's not just singled out to Pompton Lakes. If you look across the board, every town has been adopting this ordinance. There are some waivers that towns may be eligible for, in terms of if you're registered with the Urban and Community Forestry Management Program, and if we're designated as a Tree City USA, both of which we are. However, our ordinance and our stormwater management consultant and borough attorney has advised us our ordinance is so outdated that we are not eligible for said waiver. So, here we are with the model ordinance. There's two key points that I wanted to talk about. The first is that right now Pompton Lakes regulates street trees. This new model ordinance would require us to govern private trees. So now we're getting into the private tree business. And, our great Shade Tree Commission inspects all of our street trees, but I don't necessarily know that they have the bandwidth to start getting involved in private trees.
Or go on public.
And at the same time, in terms of a liability issue, we would require a licensed professional to do so. So the first topic was about the implementation of the ordinance. And I would recommend the hiring of a forester to implement the permit process. There would have to be a full, expanded permit process. The forester would have to go out and inspect the said tree that has been requested to be taken down. There are exceptions with regards to dead trees, hazardous trees, or ash trees, which have been subject to disease over the last few years. So those are three exemptions that I'm aware of. There could be more.
When you say exemptions, it still requires the forester's review.
It does,
Okay.
and they still have to submit a permit application, but they would not have to pay a fee, right? They could just take down the tree on their own.
Okay.
And then the next point I wanted to bring up is with this new expanded permit process, we have to talk about fees. And, if I'm looking for direction from the governing body if they wish to charge fees. So there would be a permit application fee, and then there would be a fee with regards to the replacement schedule. And what that is this new model ordinance requires residents, if they were to take down a certain diameter tree, they are required to either replace said tree with either a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 replacement schedule. So if I took down a tree that's over 36 inches in caliper, I may have to plant 3 new trees.
Which most people do is take down a big tree, they don't take down small
So
trees.
that's the first requirement. And the town has a right to either charge a fee. Well, let me put it this way. The resident has the resident has the right to plant the trees, or if they don't want to plant the trees, they have the right to pay us, right? So if I'm building an addition and I'm taking down a large tree and I don't have space, I, as a resident, could have the option of paying the borough a fee instead of having to plant that. And the thought process there is we could use that money to offset the cost of our forester, our shade tree program. You know, we'd have to see how many permits would come in, but, you know, that's one positive out of the whole thing. And then the last aspect of the ordinance is it requires a list of tree species that are suggested for the replanting schedule. So I'm under the impression that the Shade Tree Commission has a list
They do.
right now, so we're going to use that list as part of the ordinance. But the purpose there is, you know, if you're taking down a large oak tree, you know, I don't want you planting a Japanese dwarf maple, right? That's an attractive landscape plant. When you're taking down a very large tree, that's why we would have the suggested list to kind of properly make sure that the proper trees are being replanted back into our canopy.
So I just don't want the public to understand, this is a statewide ordinance that we have to follow. We're not choosing to do this by say, we're being told we have to do this. I don't 100% agree with it on going on private property to address concerns, but the state is telling us we have to do it, then we have to do it. So now we have to decide, you know, there's gonna be fees involved, so it's, you know, becomes an issue.
So I have a question. States are making it mandatory for municipalities to dictate what people do on private property,
Yes, this is a requirement across the board.
and there's no way around this?
If we were eligible for the waiver, we could probably get around it in some way, but at that point, our ordinance would be so in line with the model, it wouldn't really matter. So I mean, it is a requirement at this
Are
point.
you aware of any challenges at this point by any municipality against this? It's just specific elements of it, not the
I am
entirety.
not.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that.
There was a public comment period, and when the state put out revisions to this MS4 permit, every state piece of legislation or policy update, because I don't think this was actually legislation, it was a DEP policy update. There is a comment period. I believe actually Pompton Lakes, we did send in a letter outlining a number of concerns related to this MS4 permit update, including this model tree ordinance, because it is a one-size-fits-all. So you have to adopt this ordinance in Pompton Lakes the same way that you would have to do in Cape May. Obviously, these are two very different environments from each other, but DEP is not good about parsing out differences, so we all get the cookie-cutter ordinance that we have to adopt as a result.
And what happens, because I know what's gonna happen, and look, it's an educational to the public also, but there's gonna be people say, I'm not even telling the town I'm taking a tree down, right? And then what happens at that point?
Well, that goes to our whole enforcement program, which would be bolstered with a new forester, right? And then I would like to add, I've seen this program work in other towns where if I require you as the borough to replace your tree, we could word it as we give the resident 6 months to do so. And then the forester's responsibility would be to go out maybe twice or 3 times a year to follow up on these permits to make sure that the resident replanted the tree, or to collect said money, right, as to the replacement fee. So I think one of the topics I wanted to discuss is if the governing body, you know, would wish to charge a fee for the replacement, right? So I think I'm looking for direction there. I will tell you that Pequannock, Oakland, and Riverdale are all charging a fee for the replacement, but not for the permit application.
And when you say the replacement, say it's a larger tree that has to be replaced, does that change, is it one price fits all?
No, it's broken down into 4 categories. So the category 1 is a tree that is less than 2.5 inches. I'm sorry, between 2.5 and 6 inches. You have to,
Yeah, it's still tiny.
you have to replant it 1 for 1, or pay a fee of $50. Then category 2 is 13 inches to 22 inches. you have to replant 1 tree for 2 trees, and the fee is $75. Category 3 is 23 inches to 32 inches. If you take down 1 tree, you have to replant 3 or pay $100. And then category 4 is anything over 33 inches, you'd have to replant with 4 trees or pay a fee of $200 to the borough.
So you have to pay for the trees yourself and the permit.
Well, you could either pay for the tree and plant it, or you can say, I don't want to plant the tree, I'll just pay you the money.
$75, and you don't have to plant anything?
Well, it depends what the
What
size
size?
of the tree
Yeah,
is,
it's
but
a
yes,
payment in lieu.
Okay.
in lieu of planting.
The only thing I'm concerned about is we're an old town. We have a lot of old, big trees. I don't see a lot of people taking down 15-inch trees. I see them taking down 50-inch trees, you know? So, they're gonna be right at the top with 4 trees or the payout, whatever you want. I'll leave it up to you guys about the number. I'm not a fan of the whole thing, but I know we
I
got.
don't like anything about this.
None of
This
that.
is terrible.
Now, we behind the curve here, as far as you already told me that Paquonic, I guess you mentioned Riverdale and Oakland are already charging this fee and applied this ordinance and approved this ordinance already.
Correct.
So what he's asking for is guidance on the fee schedule. We have to do it.
So here's the thing, and this is my thought process, is charging fees or permit fees for this kind of stinks. But at the same time, like, we are going to have an additional cost related to having a forester come in, do the inspection, process this stuff. I'm assuming that this gets processed through the building department, so our building department's gonna have an extra workload associated with this. There's costs involved in that, and the question becomes, do we spread out the costs among all the taxpayers in the borough for the use of this forester, and then not charging a permit fee? And if I don't have to charge, if I've done what I needed to do, or I never have to remove a tree, why am I paying for this forester? So in my mind, I think we should charge a permit fee, and I think that the charge of the permit fee should be in line with the cost of having the forester conduct their work associated with this ordinance.
Is it a permit fee, or is it, because I thought he said there wouldn't be a permit fee, and it would only be a fee if you don't
There's
replace?
both. There's both.
So you actually have to pay a permit fee to replace a tree?
On your own property, yes.
So to that point about someone already having done their work, residents aren't here permanently. I mean, there's a turnover in residents, people come, people go. This is gonna be, you can't say, I live here, I don't need a tree. You could move and someone else could
Yeah,
move in. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I mean, yes, the cost should be spread out over everyone if we're being forced to do this, but this is like, I don't want to be in the business of telling people what they can and cannot do on their private property, all the way up to wherever this started. This is terrible.
Welcome
So
to
what
the
is the
state of New
salary or the hourly rate of this forester? Because I've never heard of this
We
position.
need to know that too.
So I've myself hired a forester before in Oakland and in Riverdale. Anywhere, I mean, it depends on the season, right? The work is more heavy in the summer months. I've seen an annual cost of anywhere from 30 to 50,000 for a forester to implement.
We're
the
not
proper-
counting, we're not collecting that in fees.
But do we even know it needs to be an annual
No,
salary?
you're not.
1 year, maybe this is
Well-
only 3 people, and then 1 year, maybe it's 50 people.
Of course, the cost would be significantly less in the winter months, you would think. I've seen it, higher in the summer months due to more outdoor activity. But, the aggregate cost usually is about between 30 and 50,000, again, dependent on the amount of permits that are taken out. Sure, you can have a year where, there's very minimal permits, but, it's usually a steady flow.
Can it be paid on an as-needed basis?
He's paid hourly, yes. It's not an employee. It would be a consultant that we would bring in.
Is his
So we-
job to go around town and look at trees and find trees that need to be replaced, or it's only
No,
if
it's only if
someone
you're
wants
applying
to replace
for
it?
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does this replace our shade tree?
Shade tree would still govern street trees per the ordinance. This is only to amend the removal and replacement section of the ordinance to incorporate the state language. And again, I should have said, I met with the Shade Tree Commission. I went to their meeting and talked with them about this. They're obviously upset about the new model. But again, it's something that we have to comply with. Otherwise, we, are putting our permit in jeopardy and could be subject to possible fines and penalties at some point. So it's definitely something is in our best interest.
So I think what we're asking right now, because we could talk about this all day, and you don't have to have an answer now, we're not voting on anything. He's just looking for guidance on, are we gonna charge fees or not charge fees? maybe get an idea of how much the fees are. He just gave us an example of some of the fees. I'm okay with the example he gave. I'm not okay with the whole program, but I'm okay if we have to do something with that schedule. The only concern I have is, so you got a property that's an acre, and you want to take down 6 trees. You're now, you're replacing 25 trees at that point, if they're big trees?
Or you're buying, or you're opting out. This is terrible.
Well, in all defense, to the borough, I will add that, I've seen clear cutting of properties before,
Mhm.
and there certainly wasn't a mechanism in place, so this could prevent that. If a developer was to come in and put in a new complex and they have to take down 100 trees, I mean, that, if the ordinance wasn't in place, we wouldn't be collecting that money, and he would still be doing that work.
But that's, yeah, and I understand that, but when you're talking about a homeowner who happens to have a lot of trees on his yard, he's removing trees now, the message we're gonna have to make sure everybody understands is, this is coming not from us. We don't support it, we have to do it, we have to implement it, it's like collecting taxes. don't
Mayor, I
collect-
support
I
it.
mean,
As a flood-affected resident, I find it interesting that it's pouring outside as we're discussing this.
I was gonna say-
My neighborhood is devoid of trees because we had some families move in and clear cut. And the heat during the summer on some of those streets, and the fact that we flood, there needs to be something in place. I actually looked into this a couple years ago when I was ordinance chair. Didn't get far. So while, yes, it's on someone's private property, you gotta look at the big picture about how bad it's been raining, the fact that we flooded for the first time in 11, 12 years? 12 years. So, I might be the only dissenting vote here.
And I plant a tree, do I have to pay a fee?
No,
It's a tree removal ordinance.
tree removal,
So it only pertains to the taking down of a tree.
Correct.
So you can have no trees and plant 10 trees and there's no fees.
of course,
So
And
in
you
the-
don't need permission and you can plant whatever you want.
yes.
But if I have an oak tree and I take an oak tree down, now you're telling me what I have to replace it with?
Yes.
Based on the size of that tree,
And species.
species will determine what you need to replace it with,
Or you can pay your fee.
and you pay that fee.
And the right-of-way trees, what has that for?
It is subject to this, yes.
So, right now, we have a lot of tree-lined streets, right? And the trees are in the right-of-way. I happen to have one in front of my house, it's 50 inches wide. If I want to take that down, am I falling into this, or is that in shade trees realm?
You can't
That
take
would
away-
be shade
away-
That's shade tree.
That's a borough tree,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
because it's in the right
That's a
of way.
borough tree, we only do front yard trees, not in the right-of-way trees.
Correct. And I guess as a follow-up to that, the forester would have to go out and determine, right, because there could be, maybe confusion as to if the tree is actually in the right of way. We need this professional to make the recommendation,
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of struggle with this, and a lot of people fighting this, and a lot of people mad about this, but we have to do it, it's just what it is.
Out of our hands.
But I'm okay with the, I'm not saying we're voting on this, but okay with the fee schedule he presented, unless somebody else has a different feeling of it.
Well, we don't have a presented fee schedule because at some point, we have to develop an application fee. I think we should, it may not cover the full cost, but I think there should be some
Yeah,
kind of fee
I'm okay.
associated with the application.
But even a $50 fee, how much are we covering on?
Well,
Can you
we'll
send
see.
us
It
a
might be more.
sampling of what some other towns are charging that have already implemented it, along with the sampling of a couple of forester ranges of expenses, so I can
Oh,
at least see what this could possibly cost us
We
and what
have-
we could collect?
We have a forester, we use John Woodson, and I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll keep him, because he's done a very good job for Pompton Lakes.
I could certainly provide more information. I think what I was going to propose was, I'll work with our borough attorney, we'll kind of come up with a draft, maybe subject to some of the fees, right? We'll maybe do an analysis for the surrounding towns and present it to the governing body in the next
Yeah.
workshop. I'll also send it to the commission for review and comments, and then, we'd have to start introducing this in April to move it forward.
What is April?
Yeah, so we have to adopt this by May 1st. So we have to intro and adopt in April. So March is our only chance to
That's 1
revise
month to get
anything.
it
So we have a
sorted.
month to do this,
All right.
to come up with.
Is this something all towns are facing now unless they've already qualified for a waiver?
Yes.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. The next workshop topic is at the request of Councilwoman Polidori, to talk about the redevelopment agency. I'm going to kick it back to the borough attorney to start the discussion, perhaps.
Sure. So I think that you were all provided our answer. This started with the initial question that was asked 2 meetings ago about whether the fact that a member of the redevelopment agency is no longer a resident, whether that created a vacancy under the vacancy ordinance. And we took a look at that question and we found that it did not. And the reason it did not is because unlike some of the other agencies and commissions in the town, the redevelopment agency ordinance does not require the members of the agency to be residents, and therefore that ordinance that discusses vacancies is not triggered. And so you can have members of the redevelopment agency that are non-residents continue to serve. They are not, that they're moving out of town does not create a vacancy. The follow-up question then came up as to whether, if it was the will of the borough council to require residency for the redevelopment agency, whether that ordinance, the redevelopment ordinance, could be amended to require residency. And we took a look at that question and we determined that yes, that could be, the redevelopment ordinance could be amended to require residency. I am aware that there were some other opinions on this prior to us coming on board, but we looked at that and those opinions were based on the silence in the law, but the appellate division has now come down in a case involving a sewer authority, which, much like a redevelopment agency, has no residency requirement. And the question was, for this borough, when they adopted changes to their sewer authority ordinance, when they added residency as a requirement, whether they were permitted to do that in face of the silence on the sewer authority's law on that. And the appellate, both the trial court and the appellate division said, yes, they can. You can't read that much into the silence on these sorts of questions. So while there may be a challenge to a revision of the redevelopment ordinance, we feel rather strongly that we would be able to, that challenge would fail if it were brought to court. So that's where we are.
All right, so we have a redevelopment agency that has members of the public, and they've all been put on that board for certain reasons. We have one member who does not live in town. He was our planning board director for a long time, and then redevelopment director for a while. He attends all the meetings. He doesn't miss any meetings. He's involved in every way that you can be involved in this. Does a very good job, I think, and he's very non-partial on how he makes his decisions. You know, that's what I'll say with the boards. I hate going after any volunteers that we have in town who are giving free of their time to say, we don't like what you're doing and we'd like to remove you. I just don't appreciate that.
So I don't think that the problem is that we don't like what he's doing. He's the only board or committee in this town that allows for someone that is not a member of this community to serve on it. I think it looks, I think it's in bad precedent, right? So should someone that works as diligently on another board or committee, the director of the recreation, the lead of the shade tree, have all been longtime community members and residents, taxpayers with a vested interest in this community, very good at what they do. Should either one of them decide that they would like to sell their home and move out of the borough, are we going to then further accommodate them so that they can continue to sit on other boards and commissions as non-residents? There's no argument here that he is passionate about what he does. Is he qualified? I don't know. I can't speak to that. He does not come from a profession that, you know, anyone else could come from, that they could learn the same things he has learned. I'm just not sure why we're making an accommodation for one person on one board. And I like uniformity, so if this is something we're going to continue with, then I think we should relax that requirement across the table on all boards and committees, and anyone that should prove that they are good at what they do in this town and wants to move out of the town can still continue to sit on whatever board or committee they want.
Before we go any further, I just want a clarification, because we seem to be getting into a discussion of an individual. We haven't named that person, obviously, but do we have to consider a rice notice? Because it seems like now we're going into an individual and not a broader discussion among the agency membership.
We're not in closed session, but this should not be discussed on on an individual basis. This is really the broader question of whether residency is required. So I appreciate that comment, and we should refrain from discussing any specific individual. Instead, we should just the council should approach this on the broader question of whether residency is something that is something that they want required for the redevelopment agency. And I should say, I should have added that, our view is that the borough is free to amend their ordinance. It's not a recommendation that you amend it. That is purely a council decision, whether you do that or not. Our opinion is merely that you may amend it.
Okay, so speaking in generalities without alluding to any one particular person, we have 12,000 residents in this town. I find it hard to believe that we couldn't find enough residents in this community to fill that seat, should it need to be required to be a member of Pompton, a resident of Pompton Lakes. It's one of the biggest things we have facing our town right now, right? It's going to literally change the structure, the services, just about everything we can think of. And I truly believe that that board should be comprised of people that have skin in the game, that sit in the traffic, that have kids in the school, that pay taxes, that own a building or a business, or even at the very least have family here. So again, I'll leave it like this. If what's good for one board should be good for all. So we either make it a requirement that everyone must be a resident to sit on a board in this town, or you don't, and then anyone on any board can move out and stay.
Isn't there state statute for planning boards and zoning boards?
Yeah.
State statutes.
I was going to say the kind of flipping it that way. There are zoning boards and planning boards are required to be residents. I would have to look at whether all boards could be.
So excluding anything that's not covered by state statute. We could change the language in flood advisory board to say that should we want a non-resident to sit on that board, that would be okay.
You don't have to be a member to sit on flood advisory board, or any board.
Actually, the language for those are specific in saying that you must be a resident. We
I'd
looked
have to
through
check
them.
it. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true. Are
The
they?
language
Yes,
is
that's
specific in
correct.
every other one that you
Correct.
must be a resident. It is the only one that allows for a non-resident. So let's make it an either or none, right? Let's open it up to everyone, anywhere that wants to stay, or no one, and you must be a resident.
To the extent not
To the
otherwise
extent that
required
it's not covered by state
statute.
statute.
See, I'm looking at it from, and I'll let everybody else speak, I'm looking at it from a different point of view. We have some, say we had a resident who was very qualified, this is a very specific position. Saying he's not qualified, he was the planning board director for 15 years.
No one said he wasn't qualified.
You said you weren't sure if he was qualified, right?
individuals.
So, there is reason to put other people on boards because they're qualified. Not
It's
saying-
insulting to our residents to think that someone would not be able to fill that seat and have equal or better qualifications in any seat on any board.
So the way that chairperson works in that redevelopment agency, it's picked from within the redevelopment agency. So one of the members sitting up there right now will be the new chairperson. And that's how it is. We don't pick a chairperson.
No, but then he vacates his seat and it's replaced with a resident.
Correct.
Well, I think that gets, I get there's a consideration of people's talents and strengths and things like that when we appoint people to these boards. And I have two thoughts, is again, one, everything being neutral, regardless of who may or may not sit on any of these boards right now, would we lean towards having a resident and making it a requirement for a resident to be a member, or making a requirement to be a resident to be as part of these boards? I think that's one question. The second question is, given the fact that we obviously appoint multiple people to this agency and a number of these boards, again, based on their strengths, based on their willingness to serve. Shouldn't we also recognize the fact that given those strengths, given those things, any of them should be capable of doing that job voted among themselves as chair, because they're on there for a specific reason as well. We have a number of people, and I'm the liaison to the redevelopment agency, we have a number of people that have specific strengths and talents that serve the redevelopment agency well. So at the same time, any of those people, because they're on the agency, should also be able to serve on that capacity as the chairperson, in my opinion.
Right, but the chairperson is picked by them.
Right, no, I understand that, but I'm saying, like, if we're comfortable appointing these 8 or 9 members of the agency,
Oh, yeah, I would have no issue.
then any of those people should be considered strong enough to
That's
be part of the
yes.
chair, and that should apply for another resident that comes on that we feel strongly enough saying that this person would be a good fit for the redevelopment agency.
Yeah, except there would be a new resident.
It would be a new, well, it
And
would
we
be
put new
somebody new.
people on boards and committees all the time. People step off, people
Sure.
step on.
I'm not saying we don't.
There's absolutely no reason to be insulting to the people that are taxpayers in this town to think that no one could be qualified enough to sit on that board.
I don't think that's come up. No one's brought that to my attention. No one's brought up the attention, that I'm insulted that he's up there, or anybody's up there that's not living in town. The determination becomes, if we feel the board is doing a good job and how we feel about this. This is how it was set up. It was set up with the intent, and maybe we didn't know this at the time when it was set up, but we were told by the state that this is the procedures in place when you set this up, and this is how we set it up.
So I'm a big fan of things being equal across the board. So we will continue on the path of allowing non-residents to serve. So let me ask you this now. So let's just say a member steps off redevelopment and creates a vacancy. Someone else from Wayne or Oakland can throw their hat in the ring and then thereby take another,
We vote on that. We vote no if we don't want that.
but what if they were highly qualified? What if-
And you still
what if
don't want
they were
that?
highly qualified and they
That could
said, I
happen.
live in Oakland, but I just want to sit.
And that
on
might be a
it."
good fit for the board.
And does that make sense?
It might, if they have a lot of knowledge in that, yes.
These seats should be filled by our
No,
residents.
I believe that, redevelopment is a big thing in town right now. And I think that we as residents, if I'm voting on something, I'm gonna really take it into consideration because I live here and I have to see my neighbors. I have to see them in the store. I see them on the streets and I have to answer to them. But when you don't live here, you make a decision and you leave. It's not the same thing. I think you give a little more consideration to something if you have to live in it. Like if you have to live there, if you have to live in town and you have to deal with the traffic and more people and whatever redevelopment brings, it's different.
How do I put this? I don't necessarily have a problem with the requirement. My concern is that this, being that we seem to be focused on one in particular individual, if I had to look at this and apply it as a general rule, that us as council are looking to implement as something going forward, instead of focusing on what seems to be one that does not live, I have a problem with that. Because if we're looking to apply this, if it does impact someone that happens, then that's fine. But we seem to be applying this because we're specifically focused on one. And
I agree.
that I do not like. I do not disagree with the residency requirements, but we're throwing around a him, a person, so it looks like we're taking this, updated ordinance to target one individual. Obviously, that should not be the way we do things.
No, but you can flip your script and say that the accommodation was made. for
But this
one
is, no,
individual.
but this says, from my understanding, since we're bringing up he, has been doing this for a very long time. And to my understanding, I don't think anybody, and I'm only on council, this is going into my 3rd year, but there are folks that have been here 8 years, 9 years already. And I'm assuming he's been on there just as long, if I'm mistaken?
Yeah, he
He's
started.
been there just as long. So do I think there should be? I'm okay with that. But we should not be focused on ordinance to target one individual. We should be focusing on ordinance to better the agency.
And that's what it is. It's
To
a
better
target-
the
it's a target of
agency
one
as a
individual.
whole.
Yeah,
to better the agency as a whole. The fact that we're throwing around one particular person, I don't think that's fair.
No,
You
but I
know?
think that my statement is a blanket statement, because I don't know anyone on that
Well,
redevelopment agency.
I
I
mean-
don't know any of them. I have.
No,
Well, it's unfortunate that it has to target one person, but there's no way around it.
I know, but we don't
because it's the only
design-
person it applies to.
But we don't design ordinances to focus on one or two, and we design, the ordinances are in place as a, how do I word this
blanket.
correctly? As a way, I don't know what the right word would be as not a rule, but a guide to a certain, or something that can be applied to a committee or other, as a general rule of what they need to follow and what the processes are in place. We should not be looking at an ordinance just to target, just to do it to target one individual.
And
I don't want- that's-
and a
that just
council
doesn't
person
seem
brought
like-
up to me, and I thought it was a good compromise. They said, going back to Bobby's point, we shouldn't be attacking or concentrating on one person. But speaking of that one person, we can, make an exception for that one person, then moving forward, if you want to make a residency, you make a residency. You can do that.
I
And-
don't
and-
understand, but now you are focusing on, now you
So
are
you're-
making it
so you're
about an exception
grandfathering,
for
you mean.
Right,
one
grandfathering him
person.
in because he's been there, right?
And we are also heading into an environment where we have 4 or 5 at one time projects coming up, so there's going to be a lot, and it's going to be a lot of conversation, and to Councilwoman Kilberg's point, it's someone that will make decisions for multiple projects that are contentious, that are raising a lot of public scrutiny, and he doesn't live here.
He's not making decisions. It's a board that's making decisions. He does not make any decisions.
Well, so, and
He
it
doesn't get a
was
vote?
relayed to
He
me
gets one
that
vote, right.
he does do a lot of the interacting directly with the developers and then turns
Sure,
around and votes
with
on
the
those,
subcommittee of other development people.
which
That's how they do
technically
it.
should be the role of the paid employee on the board.
No, it gets to the paid employee. A conceptual is just that. It's a conceptual.
It's
There's no-
supposed to be the liaison between the developers and the board.
Not until they get past conceptual.
So
Conceptual,
it was
anybody
explained to me by an
You're
attorney
interrupting.
and by that role
Okay, well, you were explained wrong.
that he shouldn't be negotiating and voting.
All right, I think we're getting into a different subject.
So this is no voting. We're not voting here. This is
No.
just
No, no,
discussion.
it's-
Just a discussion. So I think we've talked it to death. So that's
Yeah.
where we are with this whole thing, and we'll have some more conversation on it as we move forward.
So where are we leaving? We will then change it so that all
Yeah.
boards allow for,
No, we're gonna have more discussion.
I mean, that would seem fair.
Okay, that's what we're gonna do.
I think we should discuss it further. I think we should discuss it further because I don't disagree with the premise. It's how it's being argued and applied right now. Okay, so I don't disagree, so I think we should have further discussion on that. Do not leave it just
Okay.
here.
Next. that
I'll
was
kick
you.
it back to the borough
This is me
attorney.
again.
We're talking
You're a
about
busy man
the,
today.
Open Public Meetings Act. Thank you.
So a question was raised over the course of the past couple of weeks about borough council members attending the meetings of the agencies when they're not either the mayor or a liaison, and where, when you count the heads of borough council members, there is a quorum of the council, meaning there's more than 3 council members present at a meeting. And I think you all received in your package my memo addressing this,
And an email was sent to.
and an email. So just to underscore, when there's more than a quorum there, those additional members who are not, the additional council members who are not there in some official capacity, and there's 4 or more of you there, it's important that the council member not participate in the discussions or in the deliberations of that agency, nor get up and make public comment. Because what you're doing then is there's a quorum of you discussing borough business. And if that's to happen, then a notice needs to be done. You have to conform with the Open Public Meetings Act, and a notice has to be posted and published that the borough council, because there's a quorum of you there, will be taking up borough matters at that meeting. So the Open Public Meetings Act does not prohibit council members from attending these, as long as it's just, as I said in my memo, you're just present, you're observing, you're not participating. Otherwise, somebody could bring a claim against, one of you that you have violated the Open Public Meetings Act. Now, any questions on that?
Yes. The previous attorney told us that is not the way to proceed this. He said that if you should, if you see four, and it's four in this case, four council persons or council with mayor, that's a quorum, and you should not be going to these meetings, because there's two, and I'm gonna be real honest, there's two meetings that are pretty hot right now. One is the redevelopment meeting, and then the other one was the bid meeting. Now, I personally got thrown out of a bid meeting. Okay. Because there was four of us, even though I was just listening.
Mhm.
I didn't participate, I just wanted to hear, because I didn't know.
When was that?
Way back when they were on Zoom, and there was Councilman Begg and Assemblyman Rooney, and the mayor told me I had to leave. And I hung up the phone. And then that came up with Mark Cimarera, our attorney, and he said, yeah, that was the right thing to do. You're saying something very different.
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay, so
taking
that's-
a less conservative approach
Okay.
in that.
And I'm okay
Your
with
mere
that.
presence, so that you're not, as I said, your mere presence alone, observing the meeting, not participating in
No.
any way,
Right.
does not trigger, because there is not a quorum of the council that's discussing borough business.
And I agree with you.
Sure is.
So, oh, sorry.
Okay.
I think that brings up an interesting question, because say that we do have a redevelopment agency. Obviously, the mayor and I are there in our official capacity.
Sure.
But let's say the entire rest of the council comes in, they're sitting in the audience.
Don't sit together.
Don't sit together.
Yeah, don't sit together.
And two, realistically, none of them should participate because of the number that are in attendance.
That's
It's not just like, well, as long as one other council person only participates and asks a question, but none of the other ones do, it's okay. It's just, if what would normally constitute a quorum, we should just basically sit there and just not participate at all.
Yes, unless you're there
In official capacity, yes.
Even as a
Mayor
resident, that
liaison.
maybe,
I'm fine.
if I go as a resident with a concern and I
Yes.
want to speak, I
Yeah,
can't?
You cannot,
So
you
if
cannot, I'm
Bobby,
sorry to tell you that.
Okay,
if Eric and Mike are present in their official capacity, and Bobby is the only other council person there, then Bobby can ask questions and speak.
Yes.
Yes.
If Bobby
Because you
is
don't have a
there,
quorum
and
there.
then Lisa comes in, now no one can speak.
Now, no one other than those there in an official capacity.
So, and just to take this one step further, not related to redevelopment, but how would that, and we've asked this before, because there are four of us up here that have children in the school.
Mhm.
How would that apply to Board of Ed? Because that is not council business. Can we speak as parents and residents if there are four of us at a Board of Ed meeting?
You are permitted as a parent at a Board of Ed meeting to speak, yes.
So just not things that would pertain to this.
Yes, because that's not borough business,
Mhm.
that's Board of Education. You're not speaking there as, yes, it's a different topic, so
We
you're
had
not,
asked
you're
that
not,
before, too.
yeah.
So I have a question, just of the way things work. From a planning board, redevelopment agency, zoning board, yes, there's a dais, there's a separation, everything's easy. When you go to a flood advisory board or a bid meeting and everybody's sitting around a table, in a circle, it's not like it's your chance to talk. Everyone's just talking, right? So you're saying if there's two members there, or three or more, none of them should be talking about anything.
Except for those that
That
are
are
there
part
in
of it,
official
yes, part of
capacity.
it, yes.
Yeah, that are part of it. That's
So that's
correct.
going to be very difficult to happen when you're sitting around the table.
Yeah,
No, because our open space meetings are around a table and we accommodate for public that sits in the back. The bid accommodates for public that sits in the back. Almost every meeting that takes place in here has the meeting here, and we have public sitting in the back. So there's certainly a way to delineate.
No, but
it.
I'll use the bid. They sit around the table. They sit, across from each other in a circle.
but if a
And there's a
council
whole row
member
of
is,
chairs and a couch in the back of the
Right,
room.
they could
Should
sit
councilwoman
And
can
that's-
come in, she can go sit in the back of the room.
correct, they should not sit at the table.
They should not even sit at the table.
Public should be sitting at the table period.
Yes.
When does public ever go to a bid meeting and sit at the table with the bid members?
Well,
Normally-
they changed that.
Yeah.
Well, the bid shouldn't be allowing that. I mean, that's not normal protocol. We wouldn't have a member of the public come in and sit at the round table at an open space meeting. Technically, in that position, you would be a member of the public.
Mhm.
So don't sit at the table.
Yes, you are a member of the public, but you're stripped of your ability to participate
You're a
in the
quiet
meeting
member of the public.
as a result of the
I was
fact
on
that
the
you're a
phone.
council person.
I was on a phone. I
For those
wasn't
of you
even
that don't
sitting
know,
there.
this issue came up because, and I am going to use this as an opportunity to say this, the way that you spoke to Lisa and I in that meeting was completely inappropriate and out of line.
I have,
Well,
my attorney advised me.
Yeah,
of
that's
that.
actually,
I didn't
that's
do
on
anything.
me.
You walked up
When,
to
when
us
this came
Loudly
up, I
and called
was,
us out in a very.
I didn't call, I said one
All
of
right,
you has
guys,
to
one at a
leave.
time.
I said one of you has to leave, that's
You
what
were
I said.
incredibly unprofessional.
Okay, and it wasn't me, I asked the attorney,
Yeah.
that was his advice.
and I was in a meeting,
You asked
so
the
I,
attorney after. We
Of course.
watched you sit down and start texting.
Yes, I had to.
Before you even entered the room, you didn't even make it to halfway through before you beelined.
Because I'm going by what our
Lisa and I.
older attorney said.
So it wasn't this attorney, it was the old attorney.
No, and
no,
then I asked
no,
this
he,
attorney.
he reached out to
After.
me.
Yes, I was double checking.
I was in the middle of a utilities authority meeting when I saw the text. We were not able to, obviously, I'm not able to speak to the mayor to find out what level of
Right,
participation
so it
is
was
going
just-
on.
There was a-
So I erred on the side of making sure that nobody had an OPMA violation claim brought
Yes.
against them and just said,
Your-
no, have them leave.
Response came in after we had already been approached. And I
No,
appreciate
I
your
can't.
response.
Well,
but it
that's
came
true,
in
but I'm
after.
going by what was told to us previous.
And it was so loud that a member of the public advised
That's your
us
opinion,
not
okay.
to leave.
So anyway,
that
um,
thing. No.
No,
Guys,
I think we put the matter to rest. We understand what our responsibilities
I
are.
agree.
I don't think at this point we have to go.
Can I just make
Sure.
two more points though on this? So this does extend, the Open Public Meetings Act does extend to text messaging and emailing
Yes.
as well. It's important that you not have group text messages to each other. Anytime you're discussing borough affairs, it has to be at a publicly noticed meeting. It doesn't matter that you're doing it over the internet, by phone, or by text. You can't have, for instance, if you have a group text amongst you, you should wipe that out. If you have a group email, you should wipe that out. What I do when I have to communicate with clients, because, on boards like this, is I either say, do not hit reply all to avoid an OPMA violation, or I just divide you into two groups. And I send half off to one, half off to another without that warning, so that we don't get a reply all that starts a dialogue in violation of the Open
so,
Public
let me-
Meetings
and
Act.
that's, and I agree with that, but the only, if we, and I'll use an example today, we had the fireman's thing.
Sure.
We could send a group text saying, reminding everybody to come to that. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
a violation of anything, right?
No.
And if people could respond, and that's not an issue. It's only when we're talking about town business.
Borough business.
Right, I could say there's a bid meeting at 4 o'clock, that's not an issue.
That's correct.
Right, okay. Okay, Mike, you got anything else?
Thank you.
Nothing, okay. Okay, can I have a motion to open the meeting for public comments?
Motion.
Councilman Benning, Council President Devine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Anyone from the public like to address? Seeing no one, motion to close the
Oh,
public.
wait, wait.
Oh, sorry, come on.
Thank you.
Ryan Gasker, 5 Carr Street. I just want to thank you all for talking about the Walk for Hope, and Administrator Corelli and Clerk Francis for their help on getting this started. Guys, this is an event we haven't run since 2019, and as you can see in the photo, that's why we chose the photo for the flyer. It's kind of an homage to the first one we ran. Next year, I'm kind of hoping the photo doesn't fit on a piece of paper anymore. That's how big we're trying to make this thing. So we're asking everybody to come out in unity on May 11th. We're going to have military veterans speaking before the walk starts. We're going to have water. We're going to have even potentially the chef over at the high school and the principal and the vice principal potentially cooking for everybody. So it's really going to be a fun event. We're going to have swag, giveaways, everything. So I say it to you guys. We invite you guys, everybody here. We want to show that this town's unified and stigma-free, and obviously invite all the public to come out and find your friends, family, call your in-laws in from out of state. I don't care. Bring them to the event, sign up, register with the QR code, and let's turn this thing into an awesome event. So thank you guys for mentioning it. and let's keep pressing on about it. Thank you.
Hey, Ryan, would that be Chef Foley?
Yes, yes, Chef
Ooh.
Foley, so I know he's a fan favorite amongst the kids, so.
All right, desserts are ready, just to put it out there.
Anyone else from the public would like to address? No? Yes? Walking this way? No. Okay. Motion to close the public session.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Devine, Councilman Cruz, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Yeah, Ryan, of course, thank you for what you're doing over there. I don't know if we, have we actually hired your assistant yet or not?
If I may, to that point, I left this out accidentally in my report. The governing body tonight hired Dr. P., former principal of Pompton Lakes High School, as the Assistant Coalition Coordinator. So he will be assisting Ryan and the coalition in implementing their programs and activities and kind of being a good spokesperson, advocating for the commission and getting people to events and attending clubs and other meetings. So I think it'll be great for the borough. So thank you.
Yeah, and it'll be a good fit, and I'm sure there'll be a radio show coming out of that very shortly. Could I, motion to close the public session? Did I do that?
Yes, I have one closed session.
Oh, you do have closed session? I thought, okay. Motion to close the meeting for public comments.
Motion. We did that.
We did that, okay. Motion to adjourn into closed session. Motion removed. Councilman Bennett, Council President DeWine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Did you skip privilege of the floor?
Oh, is it on? Privilege of the floor, I'm sorry, privilege of the floor.
Have a good night.
No,
No, it should be before.
Yeah, it's before, I'm sorry.
Yes, I would like to ask that we try to do better up here as far as the way we address each other in front of other people. And I'd like to remind the council that we do not answer to nor do we work for the mayor. So when we speak to each other, there should be some level of respect because we are all up here working hard for the town. And whether you agree with me or not, the way you spoke to us in public at that meeting was completely inappropriate.
I don't agree with you at all.
You never did.
Okay, and there's a reason. Okay, motion to go to closed session.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Councilman Bennett, Council President DeWine, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, sorry, I got three out.
You're recorded.
In closed session, we discussed a personnel matter. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Councilman Bennett, Councilwoman Kilberg, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Mike, I forgot to ask in open session, how are we making out with the?
Close.
Oh, go ahead.